So, for my life's been changing a great deal in over the last 2+ years, and my perspectives are changing, and I can no longer strictly talk about astrology. So I let Linda know, and Linda said, "Well, that's good what you want to do, so let's do it." And I'll talk a little bit about what's going on and why, for starters. For about 12 years, evolutionary astrology was one of the, if not the most central thing in my life. It's what I did. It's what I was identified with. And it's not like that has stopped, but the way I look at it, I've been, I was actually eating the product, so to speak. And it began changing. I changed. And for me, EA is about the soul. It's about our work and why we're alive, why we're here. And astrology is a vehicle or tool we use to help ourselves and others identify our soul and why we're here and so forth. I find, well, how do I put this? Over the last few years, I've been eating the product, as they say. And one of the things that I learned from this is that one of the things that was missing in my life, lifelong, was overly reliant on mental and not really as tuned in or aware of my emotional states, my emotions, my being, as actually would have been a good thing. Now, none of this is wrong. It's kind of my own evolution and growth. And that's what I wanted to talk into, because I encounter people, astrologers, people, clients, and so forth, that what I'm trying to say is that evolutionary astrology, that was, you can use astrology to get into a deeper place in self. And I've also seen people use astrology as a way to avoid getting into deeper places in self, using it to intellectualize, and really to justify patterns, emotional states that actually would be good to release. And so as I was becoming aware of this, I started becoming aware of my own places in me where I do that. And I've been learning. I've been in a relationship for 3+ years, which has been with a very emotionally astute woman. And it's been very difficult for us at times. And it's also very rewarding and growth-filled overall, and at other times, and helping each other understand the nature of our wounds, the repeating patterns within us that have us repeating our wounds, stuck in our wounds, going around and around in what I now call a karmic loop, or the wheel, rather than getting off of it. In my case, you know, I plead innocence. I didn't know how to get off of it. And to my surprise, I'm going to give a credit here, because 2 to 3 years ago, I was introduced to a guy, young guy, who, by young guy to me, lives in Seattle, named Matt Kahn, Kahn, and he is not an astrologer. He is an incredibly wise person, and I'm not going to mention his name with a lot of the, I'm not going to mention his name with a lot of the concepts that I bring up because it gets repetitive. And it's not like I'm repeating. My life has changed tremendously from some of the reframing or perceptions that I have gained over the last couple of years. And I find this very related to my sole purpose for being here. And I don't mean to follow a particular path, but it's like when somebody is speaking in a way that is like, yeah, that's me. That's my experience. That's what I'm talking about. Now, I had this experience, what is it now, going on 14 years ago when I first encountered EA and the work of Jeffrey. And, you know, I'm having another round of this. And it's not like an either or, it's like a building on. And my title that I picked, Operating System Upgrade 2017, is because I have felt inside that in the last 6 months or so, I'm literally being rewired. The way I'm thinking is changing. It's all on the inside out. It's not like I'm putting out tremendous effort. And this is very aligned to what I feel is going on. That energetically, we're in a planetary step up. We are, one really good way it's been stated for me is the end of the old paradigm. This could be what EA calls patriarchy, the end. But I don't think it's just now we're going to matriarchy. It's like an awareness increase, consciousness expansion that is literally rewiring the brains of many, many people, millions of us. I don't feel I don't see us that we're a majority, but there are millions of people here, souls here, who came here to help, wanting to help, wanting to serve, with an awareness that things are beginning to shift on Earth. And, you know, for myself, I've had an alienation most of my life from what's the so-called normal way that people live. I'll throw some astrology in here. I'm trying to be self-revealing, transparent, vulnerable, beyond what I'm particularly comfortable with. You know, I have an 11th house south node. You're astrologers. I'm detached and sometimes dissociated from the normal reality. Now, I spent a lot of time in my life wondering what was wrong with me. Why couldn't I be happy doing the things that so many people seem to basically be happy doing? They didn't mean that much to me. I always had a sense that I was here for some mission or purpose that was beyond me and beyond my personal life and my personal, you know, being a pleasure. And I've had this I've known it before, but I've had this validation stepped up tremendously. And I also have been learning, to my amazement, that the key to the transformation is learning to love myself. One of the concepts that I've recently been ingesting is we talk about in the world we talk about ego trips and people that are full of themselves, and we have some fairly obvious political examples of this currently going on. And that most of the spiritual paths and the spiritual instruction that we have received is actually intended for people who have that sort of orientation to get over themselves. But for many people, many of us in the spiritual community, our egos, our personalities are actually wired the opposite of that. We're defined by inferiority, unworthiness, inadequacy. And we have deeply ingested this. We don't want to be, I'm using we, but I could say I don't want to be an egomaniac, ever. And lo and behold, discovering one can go to the other extreme. And it's just another way of sustaining the status quo. I've spent my life beating myself up, feeling rarely good enough, feeling inadequate, that I wasn't showing up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and that people were thinking this, that, and the other thing about me. And lo and behold, finding out, well, maybe that's not true, which is kind of shocking. And in other words, in a way, this inferiority and inadequacy has been kind of like in the Piscean age, in the patriarchal age, almost a form of rebellion against that. And it's not that it's wrong and it's not that it's bad. It's more like the time for that is over. Now, we don't, if that's how one is defined or defines themselves, it's not like we have another way that we can just jump to now that we found out that that isn't really working anymore. It needs to be learned. And it's like changing the input. I observe, I go around and around in these cycles of essentially beating myself up. I'm becoming aware of it because it's beginning to change. One of the fabulous concepts that my partner has been trying to get through my head for a long time, because I'll give you more astrology. I'm a South Node in Libra, and I have 4 planets in the 7th house. So that, of course, is a very strong sense of personal self. And so it's like feeling, you mean I actually get to have a personal self? It's not selfish to have a self. Whoa. And, thus I have a North Node in Aries in the 5th house. So a person wired like I am doesn't necessarily want to go there. It's like against my values. But I'm looking at it from the values of how people carry that sort of wiring out in the present time, in the present age, in a distorted way. And that's not really what it's about. In fact, I can take 5th house North Node in a self-loving way of having the courage to be creative, to express. My little talk here is sort of a form of that. That's why I am trying to be vulnerable and personal, exposing myself, um, because that's the way I want to view life. That's what I want to offer to myself, and also hold space and validate others in coming forth, in being able to admit the places where we feel ashamed and judged, self-judged, or judged by others and so forth, because that we've all been raised this way, or pretty much everybody has been raised this way. And this has been going on for generation after generation after generation. And those of us that are here that resonate with the sense of purpose I was talking about, we came here to break this, not by being superheroes, but by learning to have enough self-worth, self-esteem, self-love to be able to believe that, yes, unworthy me actually has that purpose. This does not make me great, wonderful, special, beyond that everyone is special, which I completely agree with. We're all special. And all of us have our roles, and some of us, well, I mean, we judge the size of the role and what it is and isn't. Some people naturally have larger roles, and some people naturally have smaller roles, and it's all tied to our purpose. And we place judgments on, this person's role is bigger than my role, or I should be doing more, or and so forth. And I'm coming to, what if everything that is occurring and everything that has occurred right from the time I was born is exactly what was intended to happen? No mistakes, no screwing up, just unfolding, just unfolding. We hold the judgments on what we've done or not done, and other people help us. It's their contribution to our life. But I'm also learning that when someone shows up critically, angry, whatever, in my face, in my space, it's not even about me. It has nothing to do with me. That's their wounds. It's not like they're messed up. I used to think that. They're showing their wounds and their pain. It's not like I'm going to fix it, but that's why they're talking to me. It's not personal, even if they're in my face. I've taken it on, and it's helped me feel crappy, because why would somebody talk to me like that if I wasn't screwed up? Well, it has nothing to do with me. I am learning and changing. And in one way of looking at it, someone is coming to me and doing that routine on me because something in their soul recognizes that there's something in me that can help them or point them back to themselves, to their true self, their deeper self. And the best way that they know how at this point to ask for that help is to get in my face. Now, it doesn't mean they're consciously aware of this, and it doesn't mean that even if I respond to it, that they're going to have a life-changing event. But I can change the way I respond to it, from being angry at them, who do they think they are, and I don't deserve this, and blah, 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 to realizing this person's in a lot of pain and sending them as best I can of thoughts of love and healing and caring, and not expecting that it's going to be received or reciprocated, but it's like planting seeds, because that's the way I want to face life. And I begin to learn to face life, because we are all in this together as expressions of the one, which I'm sure everyone in this group knows. One of the other concepts that has been quite mind-altering for me is the concept that everything that occurs in my life is here to help me. I have found, one of my, I have some what I consider healthy critiques about parts of EA. And I have participated in some of these things that I'm now critiquing myself in the past, so I'm not really pointing fingers. We see it in astrology where people are in fear about this transit and that transit that's coming up, and where they don't want to go through that, or it's going to be hard, or they're afraid of what might happen and all that. And I'm not criticizing that because I haven't felt that way. What I'm saying is my perception of it changes if I see, in other words, when we've been wounded enough, traumatized enough. I have 8th house Pluto, betrayed enough, abandoned enough, or perceiving that I'm betrayed or abandoned. So it's many of us subconsciously don't really feel that life is on our side, that there's a lot of struggle here, that I'm on my own in many ways. And that creates a certain mindset. It starts expecting that to occur. Now, I'm not saying that because this is not law of attraction stuff, because I don't believe that if I'm feeling that way, that means that I'm attracting that to myself. Whatever needs to occur in my life for my growth is going to occur. That I know. It's how I see it. It's how I interpret it. I'm not saying that when something that we experience as tragic occurs in my life, that I should be standing there with a giant smile on my face going, "Thank you, God, I'm so filled with gratitude." No, because I'm not ready for that. What I am saying is I can hold space for the parts of myself that aren't ready for it and not judge them. I might feel angry. I might feel betrayed. I might have judgments on my feelings. That's what I see I can change. I can grief is a good example. We don't like to feel grief. Grief's really important. Grief is honoring. We don't like that feeling, not in our culture. That I can hold space for my own unfolding. One of the greatest phrases that's entered my life is that I only need to proceed at the speed of my own heart. And what that means is, to me, our culture, of course, is pretty masculine dominated. And I would say the masculine energies, which can be in a man or a woman, they tend to push. They tend to push. It's like, Capricorn, good example. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I have these goals I'm going to accomplish, blah, 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 blah. And I may be leaving myself emotionally, I may be leaving parts of myself emotionally behind when I'm doing this pushing. That's not honoring myself. It's like I choose to move forward at the speed that the slowest part of myself can handle, because I don't want to leave any part of myself out. I've done that enough. Um, there's like, that's one of the things about can be an EA. It's like, well, here's your life purpose, blah, blah, blah. You're supposed to be doing this, this. Well, the way most people are conditioned, some of the way they're going to respond to that is becoming aware of all the places they feel like they haven't been living up to what they're supposed to be what they're supposed to be doing. And I don't like doing that anymore. I don't like looking at people that way anymore. It kind of starts with everyone is doing the best they know how, even if some things they're doing to me seem like they really could be doing it better if they wanted to. But that's not really for me to say. It's not really for me to say. And it's through embracing self. I'll give an example. Okay, so I have this particular example brings up some anger in me because it's an example of what I'm talking about. So I was told one time um, in a reading, well, you have this bonding that didn't occur with your mother when you were 2 years old that's supposed to occur. That's what I was told. So, great. What is anybody supposed to do with that? What are you supposed to do with that? How is that useful or helpful? To me, if it would be far more useful to be taught gently and kindly, how can I heal that? So what is the value of passing on some of this type of information? I don't see that it really helps. To me, it more sustains the existing conditions because it tends to make people feel bad about themselves, which to me is the root problem for all of us. The change in consciousness that's coming to the world to me is one of love. Technology is clearly not enough. The love, I can't love anyone else any more than I love myself. And I try, I've been a good codependent. And because my desire is to help people, my desire is to relieve pain or suffering as I can. But it's interesting, I've been realizing in the last year, I genuinely care about people and I want to help them. But I started realizing in the last year, one of the reasons that I try to relieve pain and suffering is because I don't like feeling pain and suffering, my own or other people's. So when I start feeling what people are feeling, so then I try to heal it or make it go away or gloss over it because I don't like feeling it. So what I'm seeing is it's a lot more effective for me to become okay with my own pain and suffering. Then I'm not trying to change the way other people feel because subconsciously, on the one hand, I get to be the helper that wants to help, and it's true, I do. But on the other hand, I'm also partially pushing away because of what I'm feeling that I don't like feeling. That doesn't make me bad. Becoming aware of it's made me more self-aware. What's wrong with feeling pain and suffering? I have judgments on it. It's cultural to a large extent. This is in our culture. we don't honor that. The love that I'm talking about is not feeling joyful all the time and and thinking that everyone is wonderful, because people do things at times that are really hard to take as wonderful. And love doesn't mean, to me, doesn't mean enabling or glossing over, but it means holding space, knowing that there's a soul, a God spark in every person that I encounter. And when I'm picking and choosing and judging, well, then I'm judging divinity. It doesn't mean I have to like everything. That's not going to happen. But just because I don't like something doesn't mean that it's bad or wrong. And it's not wrong of me not to like it. I can hold space for the places in me that are, whatever has happened is causing me to feel dislike, that it's okay, that that person is okay, and that I'm okay. It may just come down to I choose not to be around a particular person or to spend a lot of time with them at this point in time. Not because I don't like them, because it's not, just doesn't resonate. It's not there. It's not in my life path or my life direction. It's very interesting because I started realizing that me sitting on the couch in my living room and holding myself in a space of love, whether meditating or just holding it there, or even feeling the things that I was feeling, even when I don't like the things I'm feeling, but being honest and real about them, actually makes a contribution to the whole planet. That was pretty eye-opening. I don't have to be out doing all sorts of big things. I can be making a contribution just by the way I'm living in my living room, because there's millions and millions of us that are doing it, and it's a collective thing. Um, hmm. I want to talk some more about that. Everything is here to help me, because I have found this so important, so important. Um, everybody's had, all of us have had things. How do I put this as an example? Um, so I have a Sag rising. So in the 90s, I had Pluto go over my ascendant. At the time, I couldn't have told you. I knew what an ascendant was. I couldn't have told you what that meant. I had one or two people in my life that knew a little bit about astrology, which I didn't even know they did, and they told me what was going to happen, and it happened. I felt like I was dying. I wanted to die. I didn't want to kill myself, but I was like, this is so painful. If there's a way out of this, take me home. As I suspected, there wasn't a way out of it. And I began changing tremendously, opening up to lifelong things. And about 5 years later, one day, I sat there and I found myself saying, I can't believe I'm about to say this. I'm actually grateful for all of that I went through 5 years ago. And then I was like, what are you saying? That's an example of what I'm talking about. it's a good example, because another way to say it is that there's a gift in everything. But sometimes it takes some time to learn what to do with the gift. Because in my present state of awareness, I have no idea. I didn't used to see it as a gift. I used to see it as a pain in the neck or something that was scary, or frustrating. And now it's not like I have to go looking, what's the gift, because sometimes it reveals itself over time. But I become more and more aware, not just as a concept, but as an ongoing knowing. There's a gift in everything. The principle of everything is always changing and shifting becomes clearer, real. I can't hang on to anything. None of us really can hang on to anything. We're given certain things, they last a certain while. Could be a day, it could be 52 years, but everything ends sooner or later, including us, at least in this form. And that actually adds to the preciousness of everything, because it's a gift. We get to share it. In a period where a lot of things are ending, I'm in one of them now, it can be unsettling. It can feel unsettling. I've been through this cycle enough times to realize that every ending, sooner or later, is followed by a beginning. And when deep in the heart of endings, it doesn't necessarily feel like there's going to be a new beginning, but there always is. And gradually it helps me see, well, that's because I'm eternal. You know, it's one of my current sort of humorous things is many people are really afraid of death, of dying, of their own end. And I've come to, it's like, dying's not the problem. it's living that's the problem, because you can't die, and you can't stop living. It goes on and on and on. And I like looking at that humorously and embracing it. It really reinforces that everything is here to help us. Even the end of a present lifetime is here to help us, however it is, because the only reason anything can end in our life is there's certain growths or understandings or insights that aren't going to occur if I keep doing the same thing. I like to say it, how many times do I want to go through the third grade? Might have to go through it 3 times to really grasp it, but at some point, I have to go on to the 4th grade. And in viewing life, that's what all of this is about. So if I'm having what people tend to interpret as difficult transits, I'm not saying I'm not going to feel fear or I'm going to feel comfortable all the time or this knowing, but it makes everything better. But it's just simply that whatever, well, the core phrase is learning to, whatever arises, love that, or to aspire to, whatever arises, love that. Because whatever is showing up in our life, in our path, is divinity in action. Our personalities may not like it. In some cases, our egos may actually be afraid they're going to die. That's another good topic to briefly touch on, because it's not about, I find, it's not about not having an ego, but is that I feel like the energetic changes that are occurring now, where we're going with this, is not that we're going to transcend out of this planet, but that our souls are going to ground more in our bodies, more aware of who we really are. Doesn't mean we're going to live forever in the same body, any of that. But as I become more conscious, ongoing, moment to moment, that in reality, who am I? A soul. And the souls, because we haven't been aware of that collectively, in most cases individually. So the soul has created a persona, we call an ego or personality, but there's not really any separation between an ego and a soul. It's part of a soul. And as we become more aware of it, it's like the personality is like the vehicle through which the soul can express. And as we become more aware of this, it's not like the ego is going to drop away. We're going to integrate our ego with our soul. And I feel like that's a big part of the rewiring, the operating system upgrade that I'm feeling. And I encounter a lot of people, really, who may not use that same terminology, but relate to what I'm talking about when I describe what I mean. We're being upgraded. That's why I call it operating system upgrade. And to be more aware, become more aware of who we are, who we really are. And to see that it's not ego against soul, and the soul's going to beat the ego into submission, and the stupid ego is going to finally, no. That actually, I feel like that actually is what keeps us away from the process. And not that it's bad, that's how we learn. The key, I feel, is loving every bit of the process, every bit of our growth, everything I do that I, in the moment, judge as stupid or unnecessary or selfish or whatever. And not to fight with those parts of myself, but to find the part of me, the adult part of me, not the wounded child part of me, that can hold space for the wounded child parts of me that have genuinely felt hurt, neglected, rejected, abandoned, and is both angry and afraid and feeling not safe. And the healing from that, and that this also tends, I described I have a lot of Libra influences in my chart. This also, from feeling inferior, inadequate, less than, like, what do I have to give to myself, leads to the search outside of self, looking for others to validate me, parents, mentors, friends, relationship partners, to remind me or let me know I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. You're worthy, you're great, you're lovable. But if I don't really feel that way, no matter how many people are telling me that, it's only going to go in so far, right? Because I actually start fighting with them, at least subconsciously, because if I don't believe that that's true, then I can't accept that. I'm not going to be able to receive it. So the great irony is the one person that can be there for me all the time, can learn to be there for me all the time, is me. And I feel that's at the core of the big change, transition that's going on. That we learn all of us, we learn to hold space for ourselves. I'm finding from that phenomenal changes occurring in my life, and it's affecting, it's really reprogramming my subconscious, because my tendency to feel inadequate and less than is subconscious. It's an autopilot state. It's where I go. And I used to tell people, beating myself up about beating myself up is still beating myself up. And it doesn't work. And so that's the old pattern in action. And the new pattern is, no matter what, when I said whatever arises, love that, I mainly mean whatever arises in me, in myself. Both the good things, what I call good things, and the difficult things, or the old repetitive things. Just love myself, accept myself. If I can't love myself, then I can love or accept the part of me that can't accept myself. I'm just not there yet, and that's okay. I don't need to be there today. I want to be there for real, which is a slow unfolding, step by step. So I feel like that's about what I have to say right now. If anyone has comments, questions, you're welcome to offer them. Or we can just quit.
Hi, Steve.
Go ahead,
Olive. No, go ahead, Olive.
I was just going to say, I love your talk, Steve, and I feel the same way. I've always felt that way. And, and we can just, kind of evolve on the couch, I always say. So we don't really have to do much of anything. And I very much appreciate your talk.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Wanda.
Steve, I wanted to ask, because I've heard this phrase used a lot, and I don't really understand what it means. What do you mean by holding space?
Good question. Let me see. How am I going to answer that? My partner would call it showing up in loving presence, meaning, now I have to define that. Without judgment, let's start with myself, okay? So I have a long list of things that I attack myself for, about. So I used to literally beat myself up about beating myself up. If you really knew what you were doing, if you were really good, you no, none of that. But it's beating myself up about doing something that I am not happy that I do. That's the opposite of holding space. Holding space doesn't mean like fake sympathy, or they're there, that's okay. It's kind of like, if I follow some of these, the source or origin of some of these feelings that I have, I can go back to being when I was a little child, and places where my need for something wasn't met. And I don't mean something material, more emotionally, but it could be material. And so if I have a child that just wants to hear somebody say something like, "You're really okay," or you're really a very kind person, or whatever it is I want to hear. And to not judge myself for getting down on myself, but to have empathy, to understand that there's a place in me that's hurt. And it's like holding that space for myself or for another person. They're not looking to be fixed. They're not looking for advice. They're not necessarily looking to be told that it's okay. It's just like, yes, I see how you feel, or I feel how you feel. And I know, I get it. I get it. It's like metaphorically putting a hand on somebody's shoulder, allowing them to be in the state they're in. If you have a partner and that partner is just bent out of shape, they're freaked out or they're angry and they're venting. And to be able to just take in without reacting the state that they're in, without even saying it's okay, acting in a way where they will experience it as okay. That's what I call holding space. It's being there for someone else in a way that they need. They may not even know that they need to be held in that space. That can be something that the person intuitively, friend or astrologer or whatever, intuitively feels. Okay, this person is venting about this and this, but intuitively I get that what's really upsetting them is something down here. And it's not about what they're venting about. And sometimes it's appropriate, I find, sometimes it's appropriate to mention my insight, and sometimes it's not, because it's not relevant. But if a person just wants to feel heard, if it wants to feel held energetically, hold space. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you so much. The image that I kind of got in my mind was like you're getting ready, like somebody needs to.
I can't.
Uh-oh.
There.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, the image that I got in my mind was, as you were doing that really helped, because the image I got in my mind was if you were offering someone a ride and you had a bunch of stuff in the passenger seat, so you move the stuff out the way so that they have somewhere to sit.
Yeah.
So you're giving them that area to express themselves, and for yourself to do that, to do that same thing for yourself, to give your, that area. Yeah, so thank you. That helped a lot.
Yeah. It's like, yes, and from what you said, it's like giving someone a gift of kindness by putting self aside and showing up for them where they are.
Yes.
Not trying to educate them, fix them, etc., etc. You feel that one feels cared for, cared about, seen, cared for. Where, particularly when we may not be in our best place, the public face that we want people to, I have places like I don't want anybody to know about. So if somebody can meet me in that place and not have a judgment on me and be kind, that can affect really deeply. You know what I mean? And
Definitely.
we want to offer that. To me, that's not only as being an astrologer, but it's like where that's living in love. And most of us did not grow up with a lot of that. And so we're learning how to do it. And we can start by doing it for ourselves.
That's beautiful, Steve. Thanks so much. Any final questions?
I have a question, Steve. You said that this process kind of has taken place over the last few years. I'm just curious if it came about with the nodes in Libra and Aries, which would have been reverse for you.
Sure, I can attribute it. It's funny because I've been asked before about the astrological associations, and I mean, yeah, astrologically there's validity in what you're saying. But I think I think we're collectively evolving, like galaxy-wise. I don't know if in our current systems of astrology it's even built in. And it just may be my ignorance, but it's like life is evolving, and I've heard it described as we're moving into sectors of the galaxy where the energies are different. I mean, I was pretty, somebody pointed out to me a few years ago, like the sun, not only revolves around, but it's also moving around the galaxy, right? So somebody pointed out to me the galaxy revolves, but it's also moving. I mean, the galaxy is moving through space at some ridiculous rate of speed, which shows how gigantic the universe is. So we could literally be moving into an area of the universe where the energies are different. They're just rising. And then, of course, our astrology reflects that. And astrology will certainly point out the personal implication of that overall movement, the rising consciousness. I can see in my chart how that's going to affect me. Just like if if Pluto is wherever, so it's got a collective impulse, but it's also got a personal impulse. It's hitting me in my chart in this way, aspecting that planet. But that's how that more universal impulse is showing up in my life. I'm being affected by that universal impulse. Then there's also the personal way of how that's affecting us. But I think these energies, I mean, it's been going on for quite some time, but I didn't actually talk about this, but, in a nutshell, it came out after the presidential election, which of course was a pretty shocking time for many of us, that even the outcome of that election is really a sign that the old is done. Its energy's got to break down. And we're going to, it can be chaotic and whatnot on the outside, but our focus can be on the inside because it's an ending of a way that's been for a really long time. And our function is but through loving ourselves and standing straight and tall and holding space for the new energies that are coming in and not getting too depressed and angry about various things that are going on. Some of them aren't going to be that pleasant. But our function is to hold the space, the knowing inside that no matter what it looks like, and that's the direction we're moving in. Is that helpful?
That's very helpful. Yeah, we're as you said before, we're exactly where we're supposed to be.
Yes. Yes. You're welcome.
Okay, any last questions?
Yes, I have one question. Hi, Steve. You mentioned, you said life is hard, not the death. I wonder how does that switch happen for you? You become really appreciate life. It's because I feel that way. And like you said, I want to go there for real, not just mentally understand it.
And what was your question?
Like how I feel I feel life is hard, not the death, like you said. And how does that switch happen for you? I feel maybe that's the part I'm not accepting myself.
Well, I can tell by looking at your picture that you're a very, very sensitive being.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one of the greatest things that I heard Matt say is all of us that are tuned into this sort of thing, there has not been a single time in our life when we have not been fulfilling our life purpose, even at the times when we're certain that we're not. Now that to me is profound. And in other words, you're already doing it. You're already doing it. And some of it is, you know, being a very sensitive soul in this world is difficult because there are many harsh and coarse vibrations that are around. And you may very well be empathic, meaning you're picking up the emotions and feelings from the people around you and from the collective. And then there's a problem, you know, what EA would call the 12th house problem of boundary issues. In other words, what am I feeling that's me, and what am I feeling that's not me? That's the collective, that's others. And it's kind of like learning to discriminate between them. That doesn't make it easy, but it's like that's part of the work because the sensitivity is very connected to love. And it's one way to look at it is that learning to do this helps make you stronger, and stronger meaning a belief in yourself, that you can be as sensitive as you are, and you don't have to hide it away or let the world beat you down. That might require, for sensitive people, spending a lot more time by yourself than at times than might be typical. Like, person can start having judgments on self. What do I have to be, you know, I just feel like being alone. What, you know, is that good? And the answer is yes, when you feel you need to. One way to love yourself, a sensitive person is going to have needs, valid needs that may be different than the majority of people. And one way to love self is to honor what your needs are, no matter what anybody else thinks about it or if they don't have the same needs. Because part of staying centered and focused is having the quiet space to feel yourself, and feel your depth, and feel your inner quiet. That's what you're about, and that's your gift. That's what you have to offer. And it can be in a quiet way. Like I was saying before, it doesn't have to be all noisy and big. It's a very beautiful thing. That's a holding space. To just hold the space of quiet when you feel quiet. Makes sense?
Yes, that was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Steve, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So amazing.
Thank all of you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you from all of us, and we'd love to see you back very soon. And everybody, would you all please thank Steve Wolfson?
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Ooh, that was
Very much.
wonderful.
Gorgeous,
Awesome.
beautiful.
You're all very welcome. Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.